I think
Cool.
we're good.
I didn't
Recording
even know we
started.
could record this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. I will show my screen and we'll get started. Oh, I'm at the bottom.
Mm,
There you go.
mm.
All right. This is our new faculty kickoff call, and we appreciate your time today. And um, our agenda is we're going to do a little introduction, and we're going to talk about discussion board activity, student outreach, grading and feedback, and then we're going to end with kind of a show and tell with some faculty resources so you guys know where to find things. Um, I'll make this bigger so everybody can see.
You can try to go into slideshow mode too.
Let me see down here.
I usually go from the top, but yeah, there's a few ways to
Yeah.
do it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. You're welcome.
Um, And please, Nicole, you can watch the chat because you know I can't see anything at this
Yep,
point.
I'm on it.
So if you guys have questions, please, type them in the chat or go ahead and speak to us, and we'll just go ahead and get started. This is your new Gen Ed team, Team Gen Ed. Priscilla is still very active with us. In fact, she's been training Nicole and myself for the last couple weeks. Anthony is our big boss. He's our executive director. And Nicole and I just joined from the business team. We've been in business. I've actually been with SNU for a couple years now, and Nicole's been there much longer than me. But I've been in higher ed for about 13 and a half years, and I actually love it. I remember the first time I taught my first class, and I was just hooked. Previously, before higher ed, I worked almost 15 years in operations management for a couple of Fortune 500 hotels and organizations, Hyatt, Marriott, used to be Adams Mark, but they're no longer around, and O.C. Tanner. I also owned and operated my own business for almost 10 years too on the side. But I joined higher ed in 2005, and I just decided that was my fit and loved it and been there ever since. Nicole, you want to say anything about your history with us?
Sure. So I've been with SNU for about 4 years now. I started as an adjunct, just like you all, this term, and then moved on to a full-time faculty position on the business team over the undergraduate economics courses. So my background, my collegiate background is in economics and international relations. So I did that for that's what I was doing until I moved to this position. So I've been mostly on the business team over economics for the past 4 years, and now get to work with the Gen Ed folks, which is great because our intro eco courses, which is where I spent most of my time, are actually the Gen Ed courses. So it's a student population that I've been working with my entire time here at SNU, and I really like it. I like working with faculty to make sure that we're meeting their specific needs because there's a very big variety of students. And for those of you who have taught in this kind of environment before, that'll be very familiar to you. But if this is your first time teaching at a school like ours, or teaching a course like this, you'll quickly realize that your student population and just in your section really runs the gamut from those who are very self-sufficient to those who need a lot more support than average. So a lot of what we're going to do here today is start that whole process of letting you guys know what it means to be a SNU instructor, and how we can best support you become that.
I'm going to jump right in.
Sure.
We have two supporting documents for our new faculty. One is called the FFR, or the Faculty Fundamental Requirements page, And then we also have a guiding rubric that's the instructional practices rubric. I'm sure you guys have all seen this when you went through your training, and your team leads may remind you of it as well. But our biggest thought when we put this training together was that we just want you guys to be prepared and understand what's expected of you right from the get-go. And so that's why we put this slideshow together. Oh, of course, my dogs are going to bark. Somebody's here. Sorry. Anyway, here's some discussion board guidelines, and we will share this PowerPoint presentation out for you too, so you have it. But the first week is so critical for your students and yourself because they're just getting to know you, you're just getting to know them, and we just want to make sure that you understand the requirement that we want you to reach out to every person in the discussion board for week 1. Now, I gave you some guidelines here on how to do a really good discussion board post. You can reach out to them in the Getting Started area, or if you don't have that, some courses may not have that, you would want to reach out to at least everyone in the week 1 discussion board post. In humanities, we have one course that has 2-week discussion boards, so as long as you are reaching out to everyone within that 2-week time frame, that is fine as well. But I would try and pop in and out and make sure you're responding to students as they're coming into those discussion boards. And that way you're also rewarding those students that are there early before their first deadline. But always be warm, personal, use their name, and then try your best to take something from their post to comment on. That does 2 things. It lets them know that you read what they said, and it also is the first opportunity for you to kind of bond with that student, to kind of, maybe find something in common with them. Moving on from week 1 to 2, 3, and 4, I would always recommend you try to find something from their discussion board assignment that they did well. So as you read their thing, that could be the first thing that you comment on when you do post back again. If there needs to be constructive guidelines given to them about their post, if maybe they didn't do the instructions right, or maybe they missed a part of the question for their first discussion board, I always kind of use the sandwich approach, and I go positive and then constructive and then positive. So think of it that way. And then you're going to end with something of value. So positive, maybe a resource, a professional story, a question. You can always tell a story too. I think that for me personally, when I teach, that's the best way for me to bond with my students, is I always tell stories, because they learn from my stories. They always want to hear where I messed up. So I always suggest that you tell a story if you can, here and there, and they'll start telling you stories as well. And I, of course, always learn from my students as much as they learn from me. And then, moving forward after week 1, try to reach at least a third of your students weekly. That's always a recommendation. It's not set in stone. I don't want you to go back and count your students and see. Just try your best, because if we have an 8-week course. If you're reaching a third of your students every single week, then you've at least touched that student 2 to 3 times every time you have a term, or every time you have a course. Just one-line sentences are not acceptable. I say that because sometimes I go in and I'll see a faculty that says, "Good post." That's not what we're looking for, and that's why I stuck that in there. And try your best to pop in and out on multiple days of the week. I'll let Nicole share on that one. I know some faculty have a special way that they do time management for their courses. Nicole, can you share what you do on those?
Sure. So I've taken sort of 2 approaches when I've taught and as I counsel faculty, and it depends on the workload for the class and your schedule for the week. But I think taking a 3x3 minimum approach, or a 5x2 minimum approach is a good rule of thumb and habit to get into. So 3x3 would be to make sure that you get in the discussion board at least 3 days in the week. So this would be in addition to days that you're posting announcements and grading, because we do need to be active in the classroom 5 days a week. So 3 of those days being discussion board days means other days you'll be doing some other stuff. And then make sure that on those 3 days you respond to at least 3 folks. So that's going to give you 9 students. So if you're looking to reach a third of your classroom, for most of you 9 will be about a third. So if you hit 9 as a minimum or go above that, you're probably going to be in pretty good shape. Some people might have more time, might have more days to participate, but need to do it in faster and quicker chunks. So 5x2 approach gets you about the same. So you have to be in your class 5 days a week. So every day you go into your class, whether you're grading or posting an announcement, you make sure that you also go into the DB and respond to at least 2 people. And that's going to get you to at least 10 for the week, which is, again, hitting that 1/3 mark. So I think, and you could do a 4-day week one as well and split it up. But I think those approaches have been pretty good in terms of making sure that you're not being under-engaged in the classroom, but also keeping time management at the top of your mind, because we know that that can be tough. And, one of those days you have more time, maybe instead of responding to 3 people that day, you respond to 4 or 5, and then you go above that 1/3 mark. But at least you can ensure that you won't underhit it.
Great. Week 1 is pretty critical for outreach from you as the faculty, and we require that you email the students who miss an assignment. We also have something that you don't have to really worry about, but if for some reason the student does not respond to any of the assignments in week 1, we have a policy that kind of rolls through our advising department where the student will be dropped from the course. It's called a non-par, non-participation kind of policy. And that's not really something that you have to worry about, but we do want you to email those students who missed their assignments week 1. If you still see them in the class and they missed their assignments, definitely make sure that you're reaching out to them through your email account in Brightspace. And then I think my next slide shows you how to find their advisor, because you want to copy their advisor on that correspondence as well, so their advisor knows that they missed an assignment. Always make sure you put the student's ID and last name in your email. And if you want to hear from advising, and this may be something that you might want to hear from them, let's say the student was great until week 5 and then they're MIA. In a situation like that, I would say that, I would want to hear from the advisor and make sure the advisor knows that all of a sudden this person's missing. If you want to hear from the advisor, you have to request that, and I would recommend that if you're copying them on the email for the missing assignment for the student, you also put a little sentence or 2 in there saying, Sharon, please reach out to me and let me know what's going on with Susan. She wasn't here this week or something. Now, if they get that request from you, they are required to reach out to you and respond to you. If you don't ever ask for a response, the advising team's probably not going to reach out to you. So just know that, and if for some reason you do reach out and you do not hear from advising, please let Nicole, myself, or Priscilla know, and we'll reach out to advising for you and help you out in that way too. We require that you do these emails for especially weeks 1 through 3, because most students, if they are present in class weeks 1 through 3, they're present for the rest of the term, and that most of the time they are very successful too. Now, if you're looking at your course and you're trying to figure out how to find the advisor, we'll go through that at the end of this training, but it's actually under tools and where advisor lookup is. And that reminds me too to share with you that the history of the course, anytime you email a student from the course in Brightspace, that history stays with the class. So, just make sure that unless you delete it, So I know you probably wouldn't want to delete it, but just know that that history's there. So if you do use the advisor and you send the advisor a note, you can go back to the email that you sent prior, and then you have all the information. So you really only have to look up the advisor once. I went ahead and kept this slide, and we used this slide last Friday too. Nicole is the creator. She's great. But these are just grading reminders, and we ask that you put zeros in by Wednesday noon, meaning that if a student misses an assignment, the zero is a placeholder. For the late policy, they have an extra 7 days to turn in their assignments, not their discussion boards, but their assignments if for some reason they have a situation where they're late. And they would get a 10% deduction off the assignment, and that's right off the top of the grade. So if the grade's 100 points and they ended up making an 85, they would get a 75 for the assignment. But the zeros are placeholders, and they do two things. They alert the student, oh, I didn't turn that in for this week and I need to get it in. And two, they're also good for the advisors because they pull zero reports on Thursdays, and they're calling those students and adding those students to their list if there is a zero there. If you do not do the zeros by Wednesday, they don't show up on the advisor's report. So, it's just one of those things that really helps us. It's a process. It helps us keep an eye on these students, and, especially if for some reason all of a sudden they were there and now they're gone. Grading is due on Sunday, and it's like every 7 days. So if a student has a assignment that's due, like let's say week 5 on Sunday, you have until week 6 on Sunday to grade it. So you have 7 days to grade it. If for some reason an assignment is a late assignment, they turn it in the following week. Again, the same date range applies to it. It's still 7 days for you to grade their assignment. If the assignment is turned in after the late policy has gone away, then that assignment gets a 0. Unless for some reason there's extenuating circumstances and the student has reached out to you to make, accommodations for, whatever the situation may be. And then regularly check for late work that needs grading. I know that they have changed it, I think, this term, and anytime that a student turns in something, there's a little dot beside it. I want to say it's green, a little green dot, and let you know that there's still something that needs to be graded. So just kind of scan your grade book on a regular basis, and we'll go through that at the end, where you can kind of take a peek and go, okay, that still needs to be graded, and then you can go back and get that done, or give it a 0 if it's past the late grade 7-day assignment rule. How are we doing? Because I can't see anything.
Yeah, there's some action in the chat. So John was asking about how many times you have to outreach when a student is late. And so I had said it depends for those of you listening who weren't able to keep up with the chat. But DBs can't be made up. So that's an important thing to remember. So you can still email the student just to remind them for the next time, hey, please don't forget to do the DB, but they won't be able to make that up. And, there might be extenuating circumstances and stuff, but in general, the late policy does not apply to DBs. For an assignment, if you are reaching out after the assignment is due, you would like Kim just went over, you would let them know about the late policy deadline, the 1 week. And then if they don't respond to you after that, you can reach out to the advisor one-on-one, but you're not expected to keep following up on older assignments, especially once they've passed that 1 week late policy grace period, because technically they wouldn't be able to get it in. Usually if a student's doing that, they're probably going to miss future assignments, so you're going to be reaching out to them on future assignments being late. So it's not that you won't be in touch with that student anymore, it'll just probably be regarding different assignments. At least that's the pattern that I often observe.
Also, too, if you grant an extenuating circumstance, my philosophy is always make sure that that is in writing to the student. So let's say the student misses the late deadline but reaches out to you and says, hey, I got in a car accident. I'm in the hospital. Can you give me another week? If you're fine with giving that student another week, you believe them, then go ahead and send it to them in writing. Sure, I'll give you another week. Your deadline will be, and write down the deadline so they have it in writing. And then if for some reason they miss it again, then make sure you give them a 0. I always find that students that have extenuating circumstances, there's like 2 camps. There's the one camp that it is true, they had an extenuating circumstance and they get their work in when they're supposed to. And then I have another type of student that sometimes takes advantage of the faculty and they try their best to push the envelope all the time, and then they end up turning in late work all the time. So just to save yourself some headaches, make sure that you put it always in writing to them, and then be tough. You know, you're the classroom manager, so be tough. And if you tell them it's due by Sunday midnight and it's not there, then give them a 0, and then hopefully they'll learn their lesson and they'll get it in next time. These things right here are things that I was just going to go over. Let me hit escape here. I was going to go over in my computer for you guys and just kind of show you the COLT website and some other things. So let me get this ready to go for you here, so you can see it. I know I stopped presenting real quick, but here we go again. Okay. Now this is the my.snu.edu page, and all of you guys should have been shown this at some point during your training, but just in case you weren't, I just want to make sure that when you go here, you use your SNU ID and password that you should already have. It would be the same password you use to load Skype for Business on your computer. But all of you guys should have a faculty tab. This is really important because we had a couple new people not have the faculty tab this last term. So make sure that you have this tab, and under this tab is the COLT website. So this is also called the faculty portal, and it'll probably show you the same thing that it's showing me here, and you'll probably have to log in again to get there. It takes just a second. And this is the COLT webpage. And the neatest thing about this is it has pretty much everything that you guys could possibly need. There's teaching resources, faculty guiding principles, academic perspectives, some timelines so you know when the terms start and when they end, grading and submission guidelines. There's so much here, and the Training Hub has a lot of PDFs and self-paced training and tutorials for you. So if you find that, you know, if you need something and you need it just in time training, like you're like stuck, it might be better for you to reach out to your team lead and myself to help you find something. But if you have some spare time, really, this website, the COLT website, it has everything that you could possibly need. It also has a lot of tutorials on Brightspace, which I find myself, for new faculty, and even myself still, that the Brightspace training has been the toughest learning curve for us all. But you know, like here it is, click to read the latest for the Brightspace updates. We just got an update for June. Let's see if it'll go there. We just got one for June, and just a couple of little things that they did. But all of that will be here. Like right now, the viewing discussion threads while grading. So they actually just changed it up a little bit so you could look at the discussion board posts that the students did, the submissions, at the same time that you're grading them. That's something that we didn't have previously, and they constantly ask for your feedback and your suggestions so they can upgrade, which is really nice. But anyway, it tells you tips and tricks on how to do these kind of things, and this is where you would find all of that. Would be the COLT website. So I'm going to get out of here real quick. There's also policies and procedures too on that page. And then if you're looking for specific policies and procedures, then I always tell you to go to, where's COCE? I had this all bookmarked, and of course, you know how it always is. No. Let's see. Let's go back here. No, I can't find it. For now, just go to the COLT website. If you have a problem with you're looking for a specific policy, let us know. I know Nicole and I have bookmarked a bunch of them, and we have the links and the PDFs. Here's some policies and procedures here. They may have moved them all over here. That may be what it is.
I think that's the best place to find them, yeah.
Yeah. So go to COLT, and then on the right hand side, go to policies. Here they are, Here's where they are.
And Kim, when we hop into Brightspace, there was a request to check out where those emails are housed that you mentioned, if you email from within Brightspace. So just don't let us forget to show that.
I'm going to write it down.
Thanks. And there was also a question about the 2-week DBs, since a lot of your courses do span 2 weeks. So your facilitation guide does go over what to do with those. Students are supposed to submit their initial post by the first Sunday, and if they post in their initial post in the second week of the 2-week DB, there's a 10% point deduction.
Thanks,
but they can still post it. If they don't post at all by the end of the second week, then they can't get any credit.
Okay. Nicole, do you have a Brightspace course open?
Sure, I can share my screen.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to request control.
You got it.
All right. And now I won't be able to see, so you'll have to take over the chat.
Okay.
We're going to tag team. And let me know what, because I know there's a bunch of things you had outlined to cover, and I don't want to miss any of them, so you can just direct me as needed. Present. Okay. All right.
Let's go to, if you don't mind, let's go to the discussion boards first to show them how to subscribe to the general questions.
So I'm just in a typical History 100 class. Excuse my cough, guys. And we'll go to discussions first, as Kim mentioned. So subscribing to a discussion is pretty easy, although there is a two-step process. So general questions is where you're probably going to want to subscribe the most, because you do want to see every single question that comes in here. These need to be answered within 24 hours. Absolutely. So if you come here, I don't believe it's, and you go to this little drop-down chevron arrow, you can click subscribe. So you can do that for any of the discussion boards you want to. You probably don't want to get a notification for every single post in all the other discussion boards, but you're more than welcome to sign up for it if that's what you prefer. So I would say send me an instant notification, and I'm going to show you where you can determine what an instant notification for you looks like. Usually it's by email, but you would click subscribe. So now I am subscribed to the general questions, and I should remember to undo that so I don't get all the emails for this class. But I'm subscribed to this. So to finalize this, to make sure I'm getting the notification in the right way, I'm going to go up to my face. So you would go up to your face in your classroom, or if this is just an avatar that you haven't set up yet, it'll just look like an outline. And then go to notifications. And once you set up these notifications, it follows you through all of your classes. So this is sort of a one-time thing. And then the every term thing is what I just showed you when you get a new course. But these are all the different notifications you can sign up for. Some you can opt in by text message, and all of them are opt-in by email. And you would enter your phone number here. It should default to your SNU address. And you would just type in your own phone number if you're interested in text messages for any of these things. So discussion is right here. New post in a forum, topic, or thread that I subscribe to. You cannot get SMS. You can't get text messages for discussion boards. So it's just the email that you would check off. Check off anything else you'd like. A lot of it is more applicable to students than to faculty, you'll find. And then you would just come down here and click save. And that's it. So once you do this part under your avatar, like I said, that should be a one-time thing. You'll notice that mine was already checked off because I set that up when we first got Brightspace, and that doesn't change with each course. I'm going to go ahead and unsubscribe. So if you ever need to unsubscribe, go to the same place and click unsubscribe.
Nicole, Dan has asked a question.
Sure.
Is there a spot where the faculty can put private notes? I know there is, but I have not used it. He's referencing how they ask in the beginning what the students like to be called. Like, maybe his name is Daniel and they want to be called Dan. I thought there was a spot for us to put private notes, but I cannot remember where it is.
I don't believe we have it in Brightspace. So in Blackboard you could add a column and to the grades area, and that's where we could put like text notes. It's funny, we had a discussion when we were there at the mill over graduation, and they didn't realize how faculty were using that. I'm like, why would they need to add columns? And when we explained it, well, it's like because that's where we keep notes. And they were like, oh. So I think they're trying to get it back now that they've got that feedback. But right now, I think what most faculty do is they put everything in an Excel spreadsheet and reference that as needed. Especially when you can't remember. I mean, some of them, maybe you'll just remember, okay, I have to call Caitlin here, Kate. But others are random, like I have somebody who, actually a faculty, his name is Charlie, who goes by Casey, his middle name. So some of them would be difficult to remember because they're not just straight up nicknames. But what you can do is you can export this. And I think this has a lot of other really good uses. Exporting to an Excel spreadsheet, if you're comfortable with Excel, you can just do, what should we want? So like last name, first name, email. You don't even, if you don't want any of the point values, if you just want their information, you can unselect that stuff. But you can export it to Excel, and I don't actually want any grades. I'm going to unclick all that stuff and just export to Excel. And then I'll have all my students, and what's a nice thing to do is you can maybe even, if you feel up for it, you can add all their advisor emails there. So you have their advisor handy and don't have to go, you could just do the lookup one time and go through everybody. And you can also add notes like their nickname or other notes like active military duty or going on vacation this week or having surgery or things like that. And another thing you can do is you can mark who you responded to in the discussion. So after week 1 where you reply to everybody, you're not going to reply to everyone every single week. But you also don't want to reply to the same few students every single week either. So if you're only replying to 10 students each week, you don't want it to be the same 10. So you can make some adjustments here and, maybe notes, alternative name, and then week 2 DB, who, just put an X next to who you responded to. Week 4 DB, who did I respond to, and so on and so forth. So, and then maybe add a column for the advisor email. There's lots you can do here with this. So that would be my suggestion for now until they add some more functionality to our grades area.
That's a great suggestion, Nicole, actually. I love that. Dan, I'll also ask the question to faculty support, and they may have an update on that.
Yeah, we definitely have asked for it. So, but
yeah,
these things, it's hard to tell how long they're going to take. So I don't want to, have anybody waiting, holding their breath for that. If it takes a few terms for us to get that.
With what Nicole did too, you can like she said, you can add columns or you can even add tabs for like you're in module 1 and maybe you told a story in the discussion board and you feel like you did a great job and you want to save it for the next time you teach the class. You can actually put that in your Excel spreadsheet and start what we call them feedback banks. And save that data there so you have it. So the next time you have maybe a similar situation in a discussion board where you feel like, this same topic's going to come up again, you can grab that post that you already did maybe the term before and pull it out and then plop it in, and it'll save you time next time in the discussion board. Always, though, personalize it. Try pulling something out of their post, like I said previously, to add to the discussion so they know that you read their words, but, just to save you time. And I think that's the hardest part of being a new faculty and is teaching the course for the first time, learning the course, learning the intricacies of the course. And, we do at SNU, we require a lot of you guys, a lot of feedback time. Feedback takes time. So, we're always encouraging you guys to create a feedback bank for sure.
And something else I want to show, there's 2 different ways to view the discussion board. I believe the default way is not the way that mine will look. And I think that the way that I'm going to show you is actually easier to see. So now I have to remind myself how I get here. I believe it's view threaded versus view unthreaded. No, I think there's something else to it. It might be under settings. Grid view versus reading view. So if when you go to your discussion board, it doesn't look like what I showed you, and you found it difficult to find, well, how many responses does Joanna have, and have I responded to Joanna? Here you can see it's very easy to tell. Joanna has responses from herself and 2 other people, Terry and Hugo. So you could see very quickly if you had been one of her responses. And also, once you go into Joanna's, and I'll close this out straight away, now I can tell that I've read it because it's no longer bolded. So this grid view gives you some better functionality. So I think into reading things. So when you're under the discussion itself, you would go to settings, and if you prefer the way that looked to what you saw, which was probably reading view, you can go to choose grid view. And then just as a point of comparison, we can show what reading view looks like. And this will show us reading view. And you can see it looks a little bit different. So you can decide which one works best for you. But I happen to think the other way is easier for me to follow. This is reading view.
I agree. That's the way I look at it too.
So if you see that again, so here's this in the settings, kind of moves over a little bit. So, but it's up here above the name of the discussion, and then you could go back to whichever view you prefer.
And you guys have a lot of ways to set things. So in every assignment and every discussion board, you're able to customize the settings and in your views a lot of times. So, just play around with it. Like when I'm looking at discussion boards, I think one of the options is 20 a page and then 50 a page. You can go into your settings and you can look at, if you want to see all of them at the same time, you can change those options up. So whatever is most convenient for you.
So down here, you can see it's page 1 of 2. I think, on DBs, it only lets you go to 20. But on the grades area, it will cut you off at 20, but often you have more than 20 students, so you can expand that to 50. So if we pop into grades, I can show you what Kim was referring to so you can see everybody all at once. So mine might already be set to that. So mine is set to 50 per page. Yours might not be already. So it's a nice thing because it will follow you to each class. I mean, this is the first time I've been in this class, but it knows that I like to see 50 per page. And you can expand it. But most of us are going to have between 25 and 30 students in our class, so we'll want to be at 50 so we can see everybody just by scrolling up and down. So, Kim, would you like me to show the email before we move on to any of the grading stuff?
Yes, and
Okay.
I think you have to be in one of your classes to show the email.
Yeah, I've got that open. So this is my class from last term, and let me make sure that I remember this right. No, so you go to makes sense, you go to the mail, the little envelope, and then it says no items found, but if you click email, it will bring you to this page. And this isn't, it's nice that it saves everything, but this isn't very user-friendly. So this is just an email page. But to get to the all the mails that you sent, you click here on Sent Mail. So it's a little bit like a labyrinth. But now I can see all the emails that I sent from the course last term. Now, I might have just sent emails directly from my email inbox and not through Brightspace, but these are all the ones that I sent through Brightspace. So you can see it was quite a few.
And also to remember, guys, that if you do it through Brightspace, the course history for the emails stays with the course. So as long as you don't delete it, you'll always have this record. And I know some faculty are like, well, why do I need that? Well, you may not ever need that, but you never know.
Right.
And you might have a student who appeals to us for a grade. They might say, hey, my faculty never responded to me, or they never gave me, the feedback I was looking for. And if you're responding in Brightspace, it's right there. So, I mean, all we have to do is go back and look for it, and boom, it's there. So,
Yep.
I would always suggest you use this instead of your personal SNU email. If you can, I would say use it through Brightspace. If it has to do with students in the class, I would say use it for sure. Do you agree, Nicole?
Oh, absolutely. And just the one thing to note that you'll send it through here, and we'll show you some of the ways that occurs if you haven't done it yet. But when they reply back to you, it's just going to come into your regular email. So it won't keep the chain here, but you'll still have the initial email here, which is useful because it's generally when you're doing outreach because there's been an issue with the student. They maybe it was a plagiarism issue, maybe they missed an assignment, maybe you need them to resubmit because they were just really off the mark, what have you. So even though it won't capture the back and forth that happens afterwards, you'll show that, yes, I did reach out to the student and initiate a conversation about this issue on June 26th or, whatever it was. So that can be really useful. And another nice thing about it is if you just, oh God, did I write that person? And you can come back here and check, oh good, yes, I did reach out to them about that missing assignment. So to email students, there's so many different ways to email students. And pretty much anywhere where you see their email address, it's generally clickable and it will initiate the email for you. This is one place where that's not the case. So if you're in grades and you say, oh, well, Nicole said if I see their email address and I click on it, it will bring me to their email. This is not one of those instances, but this will bring you to a page where you still can send them an email. And I think that this is actually a pretty neat page because you can see all their coursework. So I can see, again, this is my class from last year, so I can see all the grades she got and all the feedback I've given her. And then her email address is here. Again, here it's not clickable, but I did want to show you that page since it's the exception. But if you were in, let's say, the assignment, you're putting in your zeros. So Kim mentioned that zeros are due on Wednesday, by Wednesday. So either today, tomorrow, or Wednesday, you're going to go into your first week's graded materials. You probably have a couple assignments that need grading. You would grade them from here, grade all, and you'll put in those zeros. But you, like we said, we definitely have to email the students when that occurs. So let's find a student that happened to have, well, no one got a 0 on this one because it was the discussion, so they would have been removed from the class. But when you are looking at their work, you can grade them from, and discussions and assignments look a little bit different. So I always go to the wrong thing. So this wasn't a good example with the discussion board, but you can select them here. This is the easier way for DBs, and then click email. So let's say the student, I needed to give her a 0. I could select her and then email. And then write my message. It does come with a dummy subject that you'll probably want to personalize. And then you'd hit send, and you can CC, copy paste the advisor email here once you look it up. I'll X that out. If you're in, so DBs, like I said, they look a little bit different. If you're in an assignment, so a milestone, anything that's not a discussion board that they submit to Brightspace. So this is an example from my class last term. And you go to grade all the same thing. And you're actually in the assignment. So you can do the same thing as before. You can select their name and email. But there's also an option from the assignment itself. So you click on that little submission icon so you can actually read their work. And here you can see the little email icon. I can email Christina from here as well. So usually wherever you are, there's a couple different options for you to email from Brightspace. And there's other areas too, like when we were in this area under the sent emails, you can compose new messages from there as well. But usually you'll want to do it from the grades or from the assignments area, because that's when you're looking at their work or their missing work.
John has asked, what's the easiest way to find due dates for assignments? Just using the calendar, or is there another way?
That's a good question. I tend to go by the syllabus.
Me too.
Personally, it sounds very old school of me, right? And that's probably my own habit because we didn't have a calendar with Blackboard. So I've been developing these habits pre-Brightspace, but you guys have a calendar now. So I think we can check out the calendar. The calendar also has things that aren't necessarily due dates, but suggestions for students. So I don't want that to confuse you. The facilitation guide is also a good one, because it has all the same information as the syllabus, but then it also has notes for you on all of the assignments as the instructor. And then the learning modules are also another one. This is basically a detailed syllabus. So if you go into any module, you can see what is due that week at the bottom. Right? No, that's a lie. It's not at the bottom here. This course looks different than the courses that I have taught. But it should say, for things that are graded when they're due in the module. But we can check out the calendar or the course schedule. Okay, so here it says the assignments that are due, and it will say which ones are ungraded. So it says here, when they're due. So for this course, the short response is due by Sunday. They're almost always due by Sunday at the end of the week unless it says otherwise. So July 15th, just confirm. Yep, is this coming Sunday. So this is, I made it disappear. This is all, you can tell the first number is 2, so this is all module 2. So these are all due on July 15th. So you can mark your calendar that way, because you're right, in Brightspace it's not going to tell you that something's late. It doesn't distinguish between that, even though we have due dates. It's not like it turns red and when you grade it that it was submitted late, and you're supposed to do the late penalty if you decide the late penalty is appropriate. So yeah, you'll need to make a mark of that. But for the most part, it's always the Sunday of the module. And I know the 2-week discussions are the outlier there. But I believe those are the only ones that span over 1 week time.
John's asking some late questions, so
Sure.
I just want to clarify for him. He's saying, what's the easiest way? If an assignment is not due until Sunday, are we giving them zeros if they don't post by Wednesday? Yes, it's 0. If you look at your grade book and Wednesday they still have not posted anything, it's a 0. Let's say they posted on Tuesday. They did post an assignment on Tuesday, they wouldn't need a 0 because they did post something, but that's a late assignment, so it was late.
Right.
I always find that I go in on Monday. I don't know how you do it, Nicole, but I would go in on Monday and put the zeros in. That way I know who's late and who's not late.
Yeah.
But you know, some people wait until Wednesday to do it, and I'm not sure why, but I always do it early because then mentally I know who didn't post.
Yeah, I try to do this. Sometimes I just honestly forget, and that's why I might not do it till Wednesday. But yes, I find it has always works out better for me when I just put my zeros in first thing on Monday morning. Usually I'll post my announcement for the week and then I will go put in my zeros. And generally that's before I get any of the emails from students with the explanations of, oh, I'm so sorry it was late. This is my extenuating circumstance. But then I at least know they're late, and then I can always go back and reference my email if I decide not to impose the late penalty. But at least all the zeros are in there, and I don't have to worry about, well, why did you put in the 0? I told you that it was going to be late. Be like, I put in the 0 before I even heard from you because it wasn't there, and then I can just grade it as I grade all my other stuff. But yeah, it's just I think it's a better habit to get into, doing it sooner rather than later.
Okay, John's still confused. He says, I'm confused. Are you talking about putting in zeros for week 1 grades being put in on Monday of week 2? So let's say, okay, John, right now we're in week 2 because last week was week 1 and today's Monday. So if you go into your grade book right now and you see, thanks, Nicole.
So this is the discussion. There's the discussion, the quiz for this course, a short response, and all these start with 1. So that's how I know they're module 1. And so there's quite a few assignments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 graded assignments that all need to get graded in some fashion. Okay, continue, Kim. Sorry.
And so if you scroll down, you can see under 121 that person did not submit anything.
Right. This person right here, Angela.
So I would, because it's Monday, I would go ahead and go in and put a 0 because it's a placeholder. It lets me know that she was late. She hasn't submitted anything for this assignment for week 1. I hope that answered your question, John. Are you with me?
Yeah, so you would come, for this particular assignment, you would come here. This one was submitted, nothing. So you would put a 0 here. Like we mentioned, we do like you to leave feedback in case they come here first before they check their email. A lot of students are very bad about checking email, but they absolutely check their grades. So you can say, we've got a late policy. You have until Sunday of this week. I like to give the date so that there's no confusion. So that would be July 15th. You have until July 15th to submit this per our late policy. I really hope you can get it in. Maybe if you feel it would be useful, you can share a resource, what have you. Maybe your first term teaching, might not happen, but as you get more comfortable in the course, you'll have that stuff built up. And then you enter the 0 here and you would click save. And then, just go on down the line. Maybe you copy paste that comment, since it's a generic comment, to any other student who had a 0. There's no other zeros here, so that's wonderful. And you'd save that. And then once you're ready to grade the people who submitted, then you would go ahead and grade those. And we can talk about what that looks like. But this is how you would do the zeros for any given assignment. So I'm just going to get out of there so we can go back to the full grades area.
There was a history question, Nicole. I don't want to miss it.
Sure.
Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, it's by Brian. I was wondering if I need to turn in short response assignments to turn it in for History 100. These responses are really short, generally 2 to 3 sentences, so I was not sure if it was necessary for such small assignments in length. I wanted you to answer that because I don't have history.
It should be whatever is enabled for Turnitin, whatever's paired up with Turnitin. We still have to enable it, but I believe they're matched up. So it looks like it wasn't done in this course. I'm just going to go ahead and enable it, re-enable, and yes. So as you can see, it's already paired up with 1-2-1. So once you click this button, it does it for everything. And it's not letting me get to the bottom of this. No wonder they didn't do it, because it's impossible to reach. I'm going to have to change my... Yes. Okay. So now I've enabled it for this class. So if you haven't done that for your class yet, enabled Turnitin, you would come to course menu. I'll do that again. Assignments. And then you'd see that bar there with the re-enable button. So looks like there was an error here. So I'm not yet familiar with what that's all about, but at the very least, you can just enable that button, and that should take care of everything. I'll have to look at if this happens in your course. Don't worry about it for now. I'll inquire about it, see why this might be happening. But yeah, it's sort of whatever's set up in Brightspace once you re-enable it. We're not expecting you to like manually go and upload things to Turnitin. It should just be automatic once you re-enable.
Yeah, and you should just be able to click on a button and look at what the Turnitin said.
Yep.
If it's enabled. Are you good, Brian? 2 people are typing.
So it could be that this is going to happen in all of the history. This is a History 100 course for this assignment. I'm not sure yet. This is the first class I've popped into to see the Turnitin enabling. But it seemed to work in the other one, so maybe it's not truly meant for that assignment, like I said. And you can always check the facilitation guide. I've skimmed through the facilitation guide for most of the courses that Kim and I have new, but I haven't gone through them in real depth yet, so I'm not sure if it mentions that for this particular assignment. But you can see these Turnitin scores there. Because I just did it, they submitted before Turnitin was enabled. They haven't been enabled yet. But once you do it, new things that come in will automatically go to Turnitin. So I can click all these that were submitted before that enable button was clicked, and they'll go through to Turnitin. And then after it's done processing, there'll be a percentage score here. So like 15%, or if it's really bad, like 80%, which you don't want to see.
Can you go through the process for enabling Turnitin one more time? Brian is asking.
Let me get a different class, because then you can see the button, because I already clicked it for that class. So you won't be able to see it. I'll have to find somebody who hasn't enabled it. So I'm hoping that this class, oh no, this is EW5, so that will be enabled. Let me see. Well, if we go from here, again, you won't see the button, but you go to course menu, and you go to assignments, and what you'll see right under assignment submission folder is a gray bar, and all the way to the right hand side there'll be a button that says re-enable, which is the one I just clicked. So if you want to check out your class, anybody on the call, if you want to check out your class now and quickly go to course menu and assignments and see if you have to click that button, you can go give it a try.
He was typing, but then he stopped, so he's probably pulling up his class.
Good. We'll make sure it gets done. Yeah, I don't want to have anybody leave here and say, wait, I forgot. And there's a tutorial as well. So I know that my faculty should have received. I know that I might have sent out the wrong link the first go around. My apologies. But I do believe you got the PDF correctly the second time around. And all this stuff is on the Colt website that Kim showed. Under tutorials, and I have a link in my email signature to Colt tutorials as well. So very useful, especially for new folks.
Yeah.
So that way, all the emails you get from me, you'll always have a link to Colt.
When we send this recording out to you guys, I will add, I did a very crude how to grade with split screens tutorial, and I'll add that to it. That would be only for the discussion boards, though. I don't think you can do it. Well, you wouldn't need to do it for the assignments part. But for the discussion boards, it's kind of hard to read and grade at the same time. So I did make like a kind of crude thing where you can open up two versions of the same thing on your laptop or on one screen. So you can go back and forth and you can see it at the same time. So I do have that, and I'll be sure and include that when we send this out.
Yeah.
Is there any more questions?
Or is there anything specific?
Yeah, 2 people are typing.
Okay. And did we have anything on the outline that we definitely wanted to touch?
I just looked through it all. The only thing that we have left really is the grade expectations.
Okay. So nothing else in Brightspace unless people have requests, which we're happy to entertain. Bring them. I mean, yeah, we definitely want to show you as much as possible while we have the demo up.
John just asked, I was wondering why the grading rubrics are different between discussion boards and other assignments. I wish you could permit discussion board grading rubric comments to be seen in the feedback. You can, actually.
Well, yeah, that one's
You can, can't you?
Well, it's a weird one. So what happens is so let's go to this discussion. Grade all. So you're going to be giving, and we talked about this for those of you who are able to join the general kickoff call. We talked about putting feedback in the rubric and stuff. So for discussions, there's kind of 3 separate areas. You can read the discussion here when it's not terribly slow. So I can read the student, posted. They didn't do any replies, but they did post their initial post. Now, Colt doesn't like to advertise this, but you can put feedback here. The only way the student will see it is if you click this box, which is easy to forget, which is one of the reasons why maybe they don't advertise that. And then you would click, if you did choose to do that, you would click Save and Close. If you just wanted to read it and you're like, okay, I know exactly what I want to say, or you can leave it open, but once you're done with it, you can just hit X. X at the top if you didn't put any comments in. But let's say you want to leave it open and then put your feedback here, which is what Colt suggests. So you might put something fairly generic here. So Caitlin, thank you so much for your DB post or for your participation in the week 1 DB. Please see the rubric for your feedback. And then you would click Save. Then you would put your comments in the rubric. Let's say this is where you want to leave your real juicy feedback comments, real content based. You'd pick what level they're at. You click here to give them some feedback. Please be careful, this does not have spell check. Maybe feedback here once you select. Don't touch this down here, we'll calculate it for you. And then you click Save and Record once you're done. Now what the student will see is whatever you typed in here, they'll see when they go to grades. And then underneath that, they're going to see a little button that says rubric feedback. And when they click that button right under what you typed here, when they go to grades, they'll see everything that you put into the rubric. So you can't see it in the pencil area, but it's very easy for the student to get to when they go to their grades area. To see, okay, I got a perfect score on my first DB, and this is what my instructor had to say about how great I am. So they'll be able to see that really easily. Another approach, which is the approach that I've taken for DBs in particular, is I tend to put pretty much all of my feedback in this area, and then some of it I'll elaborate on or even just copy paste into the rubric area so they know which rubric element it aligns with, partly because of the spell check. I'm a very bad typist, so I don't want to make a bunch of spelling mistakes. And, for me, that's just the preference. I'm not going to leave the rubric empty because of our expectations to not leave the rubric empty. But in these, I tend to give a lot of the big feedback in this pencil area, whereas on assignments, I hardly give any there, and almost everything is in the rubric. That's just a matter of preference. But as long as the rubric isn't empty and as long as this isn't empty, you're good. And the feedback in total is substantial and individualized and constructive.
Brian is asking the question, he got to the confirmation page, I'm assuming we turned it in, but could not get to the bottom of the page to click the icon on the bottom of the page.
I had to minimize my screen to 50%, Brian. I don't know if you noticed me do that, but yeah, it was really weird. It's because these courses have so many assignments. I didn't have this problem in the courses that I taught because we only had 4 Turnitin assignments. But yours are so long that, yeah, a design flaw that I will try to remember to report. But I am using Firefox, so mine is up here to minimize my screen. So zoom down to 50%, and I was able to see the button that says yes, I believe. So if you can give that a whirl.
And if you can't, you can show your screen, Brian, and maybe we can talk about it. And then Julia, while we're seeing if he can fix it, Julia asked, is it possible for our name to show in a different color font when we respond to students in the discussion board area so we can easily see that we have responded to their discussion? I don't think so, can we?
No, but you know what? Let me see. I don't know if it gives. I know that in Blackboard it had like a little star or trophy. I don't know what it has here. Let's check out again. This is my class from last term, so we can check out the discussion. So this one I should have replied to everybody, and we'll see how hard or difficult it is to spot my name. Yeah, there's no. That's me, but it's not. It's not specially designed, at least for when I look. So yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. But what you'll notice, I think that visually, what's easy for me is that if it's not bolded, so this one is bolded, which means I didn't read this, later response after I had responded, but none of these are bolded anymore because I've gone into them all. So usually that's an indication that I responded. I mean, certainly sometimes you might come in, read it, and then not yet respond, and so that's not foolproof, but it's a good general rule of thumb. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that there's a way to mark yourself. It's another thing we could ask for.
Yeah, Julia, you know what you should do? You should email faculty support. I love sending them the emails. Faculty support at snu.edu and ask them that question. Say it would be so much more visually appealing if I could, change my font or change my color of what I type so I know how many students that just from a glance how many students I've responded to or not. That's actually a great idea. I love that.
I don't know if you can.
Yes, I will suggest it to them, Julie. I'm going to write it down so I don't forget.
Yeah, I was seeing if you could download this, but well, whatever it looks like if you print it.
I could ask Edie. She's the queen of Brightspace.
See what happens if we print.
Brian got it. He figured it out. So
awesome.
Yay.
Great. Oh wow! No, you can print everything, but not what we were really looking for. Yeah, it's a bit more than we were hoping.
Can you go back to your grade book and see if there's anybody who submitted like late? Because I could swear that the dots on those
for EW5 or for EW6.
It doesn't matter. I was just gonna. I thought they were a different color if they submitted late.
I know somebody who submitted very late, so we can go check her.
Okay.
All right. So Pat Walker. I'm just gonna highlight her so we can see it pretty more easily. I think she submitted some pretty late stuff in the end here. But I don't see any different, maybe because I've already graded them.
And it may be one of those changes that they were implementing in this term.
Right.
But I thought that there would be a different color dot by their name if it was late. But if it was late and it was like a late submission, I thought it was going to turn a different color. But
yeah, I haven't noticed it yet, but I haven't been looking for it either. So one other thing I wanted to note about the grading, because as you saw, at least in History 100, and I think it's fairly similar in the other gen ed courses, the first couple weeks tend to have a lot of assignments. They're smaller ones, but still it's a lot. But you'll notice that some of them are already graded. So here's 1-1-1 quiz. So this isn't, it's probably a multiple choice quiz that's just graded by the computer. There's not an expectation that you're going to go in here and give feedback on each one of these. So, Caitlin gets a 25 out of 25. You're not meant to go and give, some substantial feedback here. The only times where I generally give feedback is if maybe somebody got a really low score, and I just want to know what's going on and make a comment about that. My experience has been that you don't see a lot of that. So usually it's if they just didn't answer all the questions. So I might say, hey, you only answered half the questions, and that's why you got a 50%. We have a late policy, you can go finish it and then get credit for the rest, even if there's a late penalty. It's still probably worth it to answer the rest of the questions. And then the zeros. So this student didn't submit this homework yet, so I would go in and put in the 0, and then I'd leave feedback again saying, hey, you have until July 15th to get this in. But otherwise, there's not an expectation that you're going to give feedback on those assignments. So just, keep that in mind. I don't want to overburden everybody because I know that there's a lot of feedback to give in these courses. So that's one place where you don't.
John says, one last question for now. Do we accept late assignments after the last day of class? How long after the class ends are grades due? That is an incredibly wonderful question. I love that question, John. The answer is no. We do not accept late work after the final day of the course. The final day of student submission is week 8, Sunday, midnight. We don't allow them to submit after that unless there's an extenuating circumstance. And I mean, it does happen every term. Something happens. You know, it's life, and students. You know, there's always things that happen. You know, I've had students in the hospital. I've had them had a car accident. I've had things like that. I've had somebody have a baby before. I mean, it happens. So there's a couple options. First of all, you could, if it's something you know that they're going to submit the very next day, it was just a fluke, maybe their electricity went out, whatever, then you can allow them to do it if they reached out to you and they were proactive and you trust them that they're not just messing around. And we, Nicole and I think we're pretty much on the same page as this. You know, we want you guys to be the classroom managers. So we want you to make those decisions because you're the ones that have taught the students for 8 weeks. You know what their behaviors are, and you know, we're going to tell you to go with your gut and your intuition on those. If it's a situation where the student just went MIA for the last 2 weeks, maybe they've completed 70% of the course, and then all of a sudden you get a note from them or their advisor asking for an incomplete. That's totally acceptable too. We can go through that policy and how that all works with you if that situation comes up. So the answer is we don't really want them to submit after Sunday midnight of week 8 because that always ends up hurting you as a faculty because you're trying to grade all of those assignments, those week 8 assignments in the last 2 days. We give you 2 days to get your final grades in after week 8. So
that's the big thing is that, guys, your grades, it's a very quick turnaround time, and this is for financial aid reasons. Term ends on a Sunday night. You know, Sunday at midnight, like Kim said, and our final grades are due to the registrar, which means you have to get everything graded and then submitted to our registrar by Tuesday at 10 p.m. So you actually have less than 48 hours. So we don't want you having to deal with all this sort of late stuff. So the 7-day late period doesn't apply to any of the week 8 work. It really is a hard deadline in 95% of the cases. And an incomplete really should be done before Sunday. So we, like Kim said, we do allow incompletes. If a student's done most of the work and something comes up, that extenuating circumstance comes up, they can't finish the course, they should be in touch with you before the end of the term. And you submit an incomplete request, which is almost always granted in such instances. And then they've got 30 extra days, and their grade of an I for incomplete, is already submitted to the registrar. So when you go to put in all the other grades, if you've already put in that form, you'll see the I there already. So there's just not a lot of time to be waiting for late submissions.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
John asked one more question. He said, do we assign Fs or UFs or just Fs?
Fs.
He defined UF as unearned F. Yes, you do assign Fs unless there's an incomplete. If there's an incomplete and you know that ahead of time, you're going to leave that grade blank, and then you're going to put in the paperwork and fill out the form for the incomplete. But everyone else you will submit.
Yeah.
So, yes, if they earned an F, they get an F.
Or even if it's, so I know an unearned F might, if they were missing a lot of work or something, you still just put in the grade that's in bright space. So A-, F, D+, they just have to match.
And just so you guys know, and don't worry about it and don't panic, but the last couple weeks of the course, Nicole and I and Priscilla will all reach out to you guys, and we'll either send a tutorial on final grading day. Faculty support sends a bunch of information for you as well. We're not going to leave you hanging and not knowing what to do. And it is a 2-part process. You finish up all your grades, you grade everything, and then you guys have to submit electronically through MySNU. But all the directions are there for you, and we can help you with that. And we'll either send out a tutorial, or we'll have another quick training on it for especially for you guys since you're new, on incompletes, final grade day, that kind of stuff. But my suggestion and my best word of advice is you will get every now and then you'll get an email from faculty support. Read it, because it has everything in it. It talks about the week, when you get close to midterm, what's going on, where you can find your student evaluations after your course is closed, the whole final grading day process, the whole incomplete process. They send all of those emails out and tutorials out for you guys, so you have all of that information at your fingertips. So if I was a new faculty, anything from faculty support I would save, especially for the first term. And then, they send it out every term, so you can delete it after term 1 is over, and then, you'll get the updates and you'll get the new stuff from that moment on. But yeah, I hope that helped. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, you're so welcome, Julia. I'm so glad you guys came. I will make sure, Nicole and I will make sure that we send out the recording. We send out the PowerPoint. We also, Nicole made this really great expectations form, and we're over time. So it just really has a lot of information on, what our expectations are, and what's most important for you guys to know. So you can just keep it, bookmark it, save it, and just kind of from time to time take a peek at it. But we'll send that out as well, so you guys have all of this. Another word of advice, any training you can make like today, attend, because there's always new stuff happening, and there's always changes to Brightspace, and we're always going to give you, the just-in-time stuff that you need to be successful. Oh, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you need anything, or you have questions, or you don't know how to do stuff, because we're here to help, and we want you guys to feel comfortable. You will, because all of you are new, you will be assigned a team lead this term. I'm sure most of you have already had them reach out to you and probably start sending you things, and their job is just to keep an eye on you and to be there if you need any help. And so don't feel uncomfortable if they're coaching you on something and they copy Nicole and I. They're just kind of, we have, I don't know how many Nicole has, but I think I have 250 of you guys this term. And not only are you guys new, but we're new too. We're new to these classes. So it's going to be, it's a learning curve for us all. And don't be uncomfortable if they copy you and they ask you to work on something. And don't be afraid to tell them if you need more help or you don't understand, because they'll probably, schedule a phone call with you and show you, just like we did today, which is I think the neatest thing is the Skype. So you can go through the class together and they can show you one-on-one if you need help that way. Do you guys have any more questions? Crickets?
All right. And if you get stuck grading, because I know it's Monday, so most people probably haven't started grading yet, Colt has tutorials, video tutorials, and PDF tutorials on grading discussion boards and grading assignments. So that would be, you can obviously come back and watch this recording as well. Ours is going to be much longer. Theirs are, probably like 5-minute videos on each of those specific things. So if you get stuck, that would be my the first place I would go.
Great thoughts.
Yeah, because that's what you're going to be doing early this week, is a lot of grading.
Oh my gosh, John graded everything last night by midnight.
You're a hero. But so anybody who didn't get it, so a lot of students are going to submit like 1150, right? So you might, if any of those got zeros, when maybe if they came in after you finished grading, you can finish them up today. I'm so sorry.
Overachiever, my goodness.
So grades are officially due the Sunday after the due date. So you've got 7 days to grade. So if something was due on July 8th, yesterday, for the student, your grading is due 7 days later, July 15th.
he's saying, he's saying, good Lord.
I can see now. Oh, that's funny. Well, hey, now everything after this is going to seem like a cakewalk.
I know.
You're
I
like,
have to go back and add some more discussion board stuff.
yeah.
Okay, guys, if you don't have anything else, we'll wrap this up. Don't be afraid to ask. If you've got questions, reach out. We're here for you.
Awesome. Thank you
Bye,
guys so much for
Julia.
coming.
Thanks, Brian.
Have a great afternoon.
Do you want to stop the recording?
I'm trying. Oh, here it is.